Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's a pretty good turnout. I hope did a lot of you go to Safra's keynote with the four or five other speakers, I guess, this morning. A lot of sort of a rapid fire of different things that came out of on what we're doing on the cloud side. My name is Coekaerts. I think there's a slide here. I manage a whole bunch of different things. Enterprise Manager and Oracle Management Cloud are obviously very important pieces of the Oracle software stack, which I am obviously very interested in. I also manage Oracle Linux and what Larry talked about yesterday, autonomous Linux that he announced, which was quite exciting. It's always nice to have him on stage and talk about stuff. And then there are another few things, higher level stuff like Visual Builder, which is a web-based development tool, and actually part of the Oracle Autonomous Database. So the integration of Oracle into Oracle Cloud, that group is also in my team. And it's actually important because what we're doing with Enterprise Manager with Oracle Management Cloud, as you'll see through this presentation, is to really blend the pieces together. And database management is critical, so having the development team that actually does the database service implementation right next to the team that does the management for it makes it a lot easier to work together and create a seamless experience rather than having different look and feels and different sets of functionality. So what I'll talk about today is on the one side, Enterprise Manager and making sure that everyone here that uses it will walk away here and understand and believe that we have a long life cycle and life for that because it's very important. And then on the other side also what we're doing on the cloud side and integrate pieces to help you migrating from on-prem into Oracle Cloud. And so you'll see sort of a bi-directional arrow kind of thing on our technically on our roadmap. So that's basically the agenda of today, along with our safe harbor statement here. Anyway, so first part is sort of generic on the enterprise side and on the cloud side. What is our strategy here? And then we'll go into more detail on the roadmap. It's not a huge roadmap. It's not death by PowerPoint in any way. But we'll go through some of the highlights. And as part of that, we'll do a few demos as well. So there will be, I think there's 3 demos, one on the mobile app, one on Grafana, and one on analytics. So 2 pieces for the on-prem stuff and then 1 piece on the cloud side. And then a recognition of our partners and customers as well. That's what we'll end with. So first of all, what we see from an IT point of view, our customer base is very much still on premises, right? A lot of the Oracle customers running Oracle databases have their critical data in that environment, and they're sort of the last groups to move. Yes, of course, we have a large number of customers already doing things in our cloud or other cloud vendors as well, but the real core of the data is still very much a slower moving pace into the cloud environment. So we're looking at a journey that will still take many years. New applications that are developed and new services, of course, a lot of folks start on the cloud side there. And so what that means is, like you can see on the slide, everyone is in this sort of intermediate state between A and B. Right? There's a ton of stuff on premises, slowly stuff on the cloud side. It's not going to switch from one day to the next. It's a many years journey that in large enterprise cases will take 10, 15 years or who knows how long, because you cannot turn off the data center until the last server has moved. Right? So it's this long tail of stuff that has to happen. So you're on the left side, traditional IT, you're doing everything with servers, you're going to the cloud, you have to train the people to learn how to deal with services rather than doing installations. And from a vendor like Oracle, we had to deal with this as well. We were a product company building software that we basically put on a website that you download and install. And the developers have a disconnect from where we develop software and then there's a support organization and then the user. Now that we have, for several years now, have cloud services, that changes the way the developers look at software as well, because they're supporting this stuff and they're directly engaged with how the software is used. So it's a really good experience for the developers of the software stack as well. And of course, we're a big customer for our own stuff, so we sit in that same world as well. From a systems management point of view, you kind of have the same problem, right? So first off, a lot of systems management software either deals with on-premises stuff and knows how to deal with applications. Other stuff is integrated with the cloud, and you can use that for cloud services and monitoring and management of that. Very few software stacks do both. So you end up with, you have one set of management software on the one side and then a whole different set of software on the other side. So training multiple people and dealing with multiple platforms. Well, in the end, what you want is something that can see on both sides. And so when we talk about hybrid management here, it's really about being able to see your on-premises estate, seeing your estate in cloud, seeing the services, not just the software that you install, right? Cloud is more than just a VM with an app that you install. There's also services, right? Autonomous database is a service. You don't install it, you don't manage it, it just does it for you. But you do want to know the state of it. You want to know how well it's performing, you want to know how many users are connected and all that stuff. So we have to be able to go to both sides from a management point of view. Insights, obviously very important. Everyone wants to know more about what's going on premises in the cloud. We have so many customers that run hundreds, if not thousands, of databases on premises. And then we want to move these, or the customer wants to move these to a cloud environment. So how do you start managing that? How do you figure out which databases you can move, what the shapes are that you need on the other side, whether the features that you're using on one side are actually available on the other side, and so forth. So as we have Enterprise Manager, we collect all that data so we can do more analytics on it and give you more insight into what's running on your environment. And then we bridge that, or we merge that data along with what you do on the cloud side, where we already have that data, and then you get an insight across the whole stack. And then lastly, extension and dealing with other tools is also important. And one of the demos, I think, Dan, where is Dan sitting? Oh, there's Dan. One of the demos is about a Grafana plugin for Enterprise Manager. And while it's kind of silly, it's like, who cares? Well, I actually think it's pretty cool because we're making sure that a product that's been around for a very long time and is used by our enterprise customers fits into this new world as well, where people say, oh, I want cute little graphics and it plays with all the little new stuff. Well, we provide you with a plugin so you can connect to that. And I think it's important to understand, I guess, that from a roadmap point of view, we do want to plug into a new system so that you don't have to make a decision one way or another. And we'll talk a little bit more about Grafana later as an example, but you'll see us do more of that, is the ability to be a participant in sort of in some ways, cloud native environments, but in general, what the new developers and new IT folks are using going forward. So we want to be part of that world. And not by rewriting everything, because nobody wants to reinstall stuff on-prem, but by having plugins and connectors to that stuff. So from a strategy point of view between EM and cloud, so of course Enterprise Manager is the product that hopefully everyone here or most people here know. Direction-wise, what we're doing is we're adding, and we've already done a lot of this stuff, is we're adding support for targets that are living inside Oracle Cloud. Right? One example is Autonomous Database, whether it's serverless or Autonomous Database dedicated, that when you're on premises and you have your stuff there, and then you start deploying things in Oracle Cloud, that EM can actually actively discover these targets using the same APIs as Oracle Cloud uses, and that you can then integrate that into your view. So when you have a fleet view of all the databases that are running, when you want to look at the performance or what data is where, you can see that from one control plane, from one pane of glass, basically. So that's one part. The other part is Cloud at Customer, Engineered Systems, Exadata, and as Larry mentioned yesterday, Exadata Gen 2 Cloud at Customer. We're bringing Autonomous Database into that as well. I think he promised in the next year. That's what he said in the keynote. But Cloud at Customer is already there, Exadata Gen 2. And so EM can help manage that as well. Right? So if you have Exadata systems, you have the regular one, or you have the one that's Exadata Cloud at Customer, you still have one management console that lets you see the two pieces together. but we'll do more and more for EM to do the targets that live in Oracle Cloud. On the management side, so we have a product or a service, not a product, that's been out for a while now called Oracle Management Cloud. And Oracle Management Cloud is a cloud service that provides analytics and application performance management. We've added database management in there as well. Of course, a lot of analytics is included in Oracle Management Cloud. And that's been the central management product that we have for being able to do hybrid management. You can create local, you can install an agent locally on a host in your data center, and it will connect to this management service. Or you can manage a target that lives inside Oracle Cloud as well. And there you don't use Enterprise Manager. You could, it can connect to it, but you basically log into Oracle Cloud and you have a console that's natively integrated. What we're doing on this side is when Oracle Management Cloud started, it was living in between Gen 1 and Gen 2 cloud. And so it was a separate service, or it is a separate service. And to be honest, a little bit of the disadvantage of that is that you have separate identity management, and the policies between this service and Oracle Cloud Gen 2 are not 100% aligned. And so what we've been working on, what the team's been working on very hard, and you'll see a lot of this happening over the next year and going forward, is we're taking the Oracle Management Cloud pieces that live in this separate SaaS environment, we're taking them native into OCI so that they're part of the standard OCI control plane. You have the same policy engine, the same identity management. And that way, when you're a DBA and you have a policy for a database and you use the management pieces, then that policy translates into it. Today, we don't have that connection in Oracle Management Cloud. And so this will make the experience a lot more integrated and a lot easier. The same with application performance management. We'll be able to do APM into Oracle Cloud Services rather than it just being a separate component. So what we have right now is very powerful, but what we're working on is taking that and really having a completely native integration of that. And then when we do database management, or when we expand the database management in OCI, you can then also use on-premises databases and manage those as well. And so in the end, what you get with all this is Enterprise Manager is here, will be here for a long time. Customers on-prem that are slowly moving to the cloud can use EM, can keep monitoring and managing the targets in both directions, and at some point in the future, switch. Folks that say, I don't want to use Enterprise Manager, well, you start in Oracle Management Cloud, or you start with the cloud service that we provide. You manage the targets there, but we also let you manage target on premises. So no matter which side you are, you're in good hands, basically. That's what I'm trying to say. So we kind of go both directions, because it will take a long time. I kind of went through this already, so I won't spend too much time on it. I'll go into some of the details. So Enterprise Manager roadmap. Fleet-wide management is that's one of the advantages of EM, is that it has a large repository and can deal with thousands or tens of thousands of targets. Targets that live in Oracle Cloud, or targets that live on premises. And so there's a lot of investment happening in autonomous database targets in particular, and engineered systems, so that you have that fleet-wide view across the board. The second thing is Enterprise Manager in Oracle Cloud Marketplace. So when we initially did this, it was sort of, you click a button and you log into OCI and you say, hey, I want to try EM out. Let's say you want to use the new version of EM and you don't want to install it yourself. Then the Marketplace thing gives you a button to push, basically, and it creates an instance, installs EM in it, and off you go, you can log in. So we take that burden of doing the install of the product away. So it's a good way of learning EM if you want to play with it. It's a good way to try the latest version of EM if you want to do that without having to use resources locally. Because it is a big install, right? You need a server, you can't just do it on a desktop, and it takes quite a while. So roadmap-wise here, what we're doing is we're expanding that into having a multi-tier environment where you have a OMS, the middle tier really of Enterprise Manager, can be multiple nodes that we provision. The backend will be able to be an Oracle Autonomous Database, so you don't have a database instance running yourself. And so we'll just make it really easy for folks to run Enterprise Manager inside an Oracle Cloud environment. And so one, you try things out. Two, if you do this, you could say, hey, I want to bring down my on-premises EM instance, move it into Oracle Cloud, and then just manage the targets and connect remotely. So it allows you to remove some of the local resources if you need to do an upgrade or something like that. So that's something we put a lot of effort into. Autonomous database management, this one's a little bit tricky in some ways because on the one hand, you don't have to manage it, it does it for you, right? But there's user management, of course, there's no magic in which users you have to create. It doesn't magically figure out, hey, I'm gonna create user Andrew, right? So, so there's some basic management things that you have to do on a database anyway, and some basic monitoring you have to do. No matter how autonomous it is, you want to know that something's out there and running. So we're bringing that into Enterprise Manager. It's already there, really, the plugin's already there, and we'll just enhance more of that. Then, in terms of insights, Exadata Warehouse. So there's a lot of data that EM collects and stores in the EM repository across all the instances. And we don't have a lot of analytics on this today. You can do some basic stuff. You can run BI reports and see some of the data. But there's a lot of valuable stuff in there. And I would say there's two parts that we want to do. One is we want to provide more analytics data on the things that we have in Enterprise Manager. And then the second part is how do we help you figure out which databases you can move to the cloud and what is needed on the cloud side. And we want to be very intelligent in that one. So on what can you move to the cloud? So first of all, when people say, oh, we're lift and shifting a database, like, no, you're doing lift and shift, if you want to call it that, of your entire environment, the client apps, the middle tiers, everything, right? It's not just taking an export of your database and running it somewhere else. Network connections change and all that stuff. So how do you know what connects to your database? Well, Enterprise Manager has a pretty good view of all those connections, right? You're running version 11 of the database, and you want to move to version 19. Are all these features compatible? Is the database that you created on the other side configured with the right options on the database side for app to move? A lot of this today is sort of, you do it yourself, right? That's trial and error. EM has the data, right? And so what we're working on is to make sure that you can point to an existing on-premises database. One, it generates a report for you that says, these are the client IPs, these are the SQLnet client versions that are connecting. So if you still have some SQLnet version 10 thing laying around that cannot talk to an Oracle 19 database, well, then we can tell you there's these few things out there that you want to look at, whether you can move them or not, right? So we give you that data. We give you data about the applications running, so you can actually talk to the app admins and start configuring this stuff to move around. So that will help a lot more than just saying, here, export, import your data into the cloud. So that's one part. The other part is to basically generate let's call it a spreadsheet of features, that the database has that's configured on the one hand, and then it can do an analysis of the functionality that is on the other side and on the database and the cloud side that you have configured. And then it can say, if you move this, then you need spatial enabled, or this needs a Java option, or whatever it is on the database side. So really making people be able to use the data that we've collected for a long period of time. Then related to autonomous database, the warehouse side is take that data and put it in an autonomous data warehouse in OCI. And one of the things, I think Larry will talk about this tomorrow in the Wednesday keynote, where it's more about applications. So you have Fusion applications, you push a button, it puts all that cool data into a data warehouse, and then you have Fusion Analytics. And Fusion Analytics is configured to have views for HCM and financial data, to really do data warehouse type stuff, big data analysis on your important data. So take the EM repository data, and many of our large customers have multiple EMs, and suck that into a data warehouse, and then provide analytics views on top of that, on top of ADW. Gets you into Oracle Cloud, gets you to use our analytics product and be able to do analytics across the whole suite of products you have, whether it's on premises or in the cloud. It's a much easier way for us to provide an analytics option than writing something that you have to install on-prem and have a separate warehouse installed for it. So we just take that stuff into our data warehouse in in OCI. A new mobile app, so we keep improving the mobile app because a lot of folks like to be able to see on their phone or get an alert on their phone when something goes wrong. And then a Grafana plugin. So this is just a list of, there's some detailed slides on it with some screenshots. This is just a few of the things that we've been working on the EM side of the house. So cloud targets, fleet dashboards, lifecycle management for both sides, whether it's cloud or local. And important on the cloud side, like it says, we use cloud native APIs. One of the things we don't want to end up happening is that the view we represent or present for a cloud target is different from what you see when you use OCI APIs, right? So we use the same APIs as you would use. Hybrid database as a service, all that stuff integrated. I've already talked about this one as well. So it's 19.3 database, OL 7.6, but I will come to the latest OL 7.7. I guess autonomous Linux will be used going forward in this shape as well. And then, choosing the sizes of it as well. If you want to just try something out, you can take a small shape that doesn't use much resources. If you want to run production, you can actually resize it as well. Capabilities of autonomous database, already talked about. Guided migrations is what I mentioned when we would do like the spreadsheet concept where we can compare functionality and give you more info on what's running around your database. So I think that's going to be very, very popular, hopefully. Smart insights we talked about as well. The mobile app, here's a screenshot, but Dan will do a cool demo of it. And then the Grafana dashboards. One thing that Mugiz mentioned to me when we were chatting before we started the talk was, one of the things with Grafana is that you can have multiple EM targets, and then Grafana can be a front end that gives you a view over all the databases and all your estates. You have some VMs running, you have, I don't know, different types of applications running, and then with EM, you might have 3 regions where you have your own local EM repository running, so Grafana can give you sort of an overview of all that stuff as well. So with that, we'll have a little demo from Dan. And then we'll come back and talk about Oracle Management Cloud.
Great, thank you, Wim.
You don't need to.
No, you can keep that. So we can go ahead and switch over to my laptop over here. So I'm going to just quickly show 2 different ways of interacting with Enterprise Manager data. And as Wim mentioned, we want to give you choice of console, choice of interactivity, and allow you to do the things you need to do however you want to get them done. So the first one, we'll start with the new mobile app. This is an app for Android and iOS. It's a pretty cool app, and it gives you not just sort of a view of data, but the ability to interact and control incidents and take action. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Hopefully this is showing up. Yep. And when I go ahead and log in, I can see that I'm logging into my enterprise view. Those of you who are EM customers who use them a long time, you have your enterprise view. This is all the targets. We can see we got a couple thousand targets and what's going on with them. At the bottom, because this is phone interactivity, the menus will allow you to do the things you're able to do on phone. So we can interact with the enterprise view, we can make favorites, we can look at alerts, etc. What I'm going to do for now for the demo is just drill into the critical incidents. And you can see here a list of critical incidents in our demo environment. We've got a bunch. We broke some things so that there's something interesting to look at. I can see one here. I've got a CPU utilization incident. So I'll go ahead and click into to that particular incident, and you can see incident details. Again, very familiar to those of you who are Enterprise Manager customers. We're using the same nomenclature, interacting with EM the same way you would be. We can not just see what's going on, but we can interact with it. So of course you can see this is unassigned and has not had a priority set to it yet. So I'll go ahead and accept this for myself, acknowledge and take ownership, and now it's been assigned to Sysman. And then I will go ahead and alter the priority so that the team is aware that I'm considering this urgent. So I'll go ahead and take care of that. And then I might add some comments in there as part of the history of working. So I would just, again in the phone, very quickly open up the comment dialog. I have a colleague, his name is Larry. I don't know who this guy is, but apparently he's smart, so he's working on this for me. So Larry's working on it, and that's good. And then I would be able to take a look and see the history of the incident. Again, should be very familiar to those of you who are EM customers, used to interact with EM, except it's all in the palm of your hand, available to you wherever you are as you get distributed. In addition, because we're in a phone environment, we have the ability to quickly and easily share incidents to collaborate with team members. This is one of the benefits of the phone UI and sort of methodology, which is that it's much more collaborative in real time. So I would go ahead and I would click share, and I might send an email. I'll send it to my buddy Zubair sitting here in the front row to send an iMessage or a text or whatever to go ahead and do collaborating. You might do it with WhatsApp, whatever it is that you choose to use for real-time communication among your team. So I would go ahead and take care of that and send it, and now that's been done. So interacting with incidents, seeing the incidents, working with them very quickly is one thing that we can quickly and easily do. But that's not all. So if I go back to my list, I can also take advantage of all my Enterprise Manager intellectual property. Enterprise Manager has a variety of filters out of the box. You can see them here. If you create custom filters the way you like to look at your incidents, those would show up on your phone as well. So I might take a look at all the unacknowledged incidents sitting right here, and I can take a look very quickly at, now I've got 23 because I took care of one. We still got a lot of work to do. Also, EM, as Wim mentioned, a lot of customers have multiple EMs. So if you want the ability to interact very quickly across your Enterprise Managers, you have the ability in this environment to of course, log in to multiple Enterprise Managers. The identity information will be stored locally on your phone, so it's very quickly able to essentially choose a different account and log back in and see my next Enterprise Manager. Maybe I have those segregated by data center or for a variety of other reasons. So again, very simple user interface, native on your phone. Your identity information is here. You can interact with your Enterprise Manager data and take actions in the real-time way that people want to do. Obviously, for more detailed stuff, you're going to go into the full web UI, but for more complex actions. But this is a quick and easy way to interact with it, available at your fingertips. So this is something that's new, that's coming out. Now, Wim also mentioned Grafana. So let me talk a little bit about another way to get insight into Enterprise Managers. So Grafana is very popular among a lot of our customers. We're going to hold questions till the end if we can. Just hold that thought. So Grafana is also very popular with our customers. And in the case of Grafana, it's open source data visualization project. As Wim mentioned, there's a lot of very valuable data in Enterprise Manager. So this is a Grafana dashboard using Enterprise Manager data on a particular target. It's a database target. You can see very familiar things, active sessions, I/O, DB time, et cetera, the things that all of you should be interacting with hopefully every day. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you how you can set this up so that you would see how easy it is to be able to do it. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to just go ahead and edit this chart. And when I edit this chart, what we're going to do is we're going to see here that we're grabbing time series metric data out of Enterprise Manager repository and management views, but we're doing it from the system time model group. Now, those of you who are familiar with Enterprise Manager are familiar with metrics and metric groups. All the same nomenclature, all the same organization available to you in Grafana. We've done the integration work for you. So you can change it to other metric groups. You can change the metrics that you choose to different Enterprise Manager metrics. You don't have to learn anything new. Just out of the box, essentially drag and drop through your metric repository. So that's a simple way of doing things. Another thing that you can do in Grafana is take a look. That was a target-specific view, but I could take a look across my entire Enterprise Manager. So here's another dashboard we created in this demo system that is looking across the entire EM. You can see targets up, targets down, et cetera, right? And again, this is pulling data directly out of EM, but what we would do in this particular case, let's say we want to change visualizations. So we'd be able to very quickly drill into the visualization. I'm editing this chart, and you can see this is a table. You can see the difference here is I've set this up as a query. So I'm querying the management views. So you can collect data by browsing metrics using EM hierarchy and nomenclature, or you can write queries against our published management views. Hopefully management views are not a new idea for people either in the room, and you're familiar with those, but if you're not, look those up. They're very helpful. So let's say I want to change the visualization on this thing to something else. So I might choose, let's say, a table instead of the bar chart. And when we do that, our targets are revisualized as a table. That looks nice. I'm happy with that. And I would go ahead and now I publish that, and now I have this view. The other thing that you might want to do is you might want to visualize across multiple EMs. We mentioned that. So again, very simple, leveraging these capabilities. I'm going to choose to duplicate this table, and I'm going to essentially create another one. Let's say I've got an EM that covers EMEA instead of North America that I've segregated for business reasons. So I would go ahead and I'd edit this chart, and I want to essentially reuse my query. So I like the chart. Chart's good. I just need to point it at a new EM. You have the ability to do that very simply by choosing a different EM from your list of EMs that you have. So I could have 20 EM sites. I could very quickly essentially point this at the European EM in this particular example, and that's good. And then maybe I would want to like change the title so I don't get confused. This is EMEA instead of North America as an example, and go ahead and finish that up, publish it back. And now I have 2 EMs visualized. Again, this is a very simple example just to show you the power of these third-party business intelligence integrations into Enterprise Manager. So we want to make this data available to you. You can do it with IT Analytics, you can do it with the mobile app, you can do it with Grafana. There's a variety of ways you can interact with Enterprise Manager data. Ultimately, it's going to give you as much choice as possible. And just to finish up on these, if I did this a couple times, I might have the ability to look at my EM across 4 or more Enterprise Managers. So again, very quick, all about choice, access to the data without making you learn a whole new set of visualization environments or query languages. Just interact with it the way you're used to interacting with it. So hopefully that gives you a little sense about adding some value on top of Enterprise Manager. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great stuff. One of the things is we're putting a lot of extra effort, renewed effort into Enterprise Manager as well. So we're trying to accelerate the release schedules where we can have more frequent features integrated into EM updates where possible, so that people see it as an evolving product and not something that somehow got a little bit stale. So you'll see a lot more coming out of the EM side as well. On the managed cloud services thing, so I alluded to this already. We're doing native integration into Oracle Cloud with some of the services that are available now, but the majority of the work, alongside analytics and application performance monitoring, database management obviously is the #1 thing, right? That's the most important piece that we work on from a management point of view. The first thing that happened just in the last few months is the integration of Performance Hub, which people are already familiar with on the Enterprise Manager side. And we've integrated this one inline into Autonomous Database. So when you're in Autonomous Database Management, then you click on Performance Hub inline and you get that screen visible. You don't have to go to, you have to click 5 things to get to this page. It's right there within the database. And what you'll see more of going forward is taking that and make that into fleet-wide operations. So you can click on you can go to one page where it lists all the databases, you have performance data across all of them, and then you can drill down to any given or any particular one and you'll get a very detailed view of that. But we started with this because it's basically the same code that people are already familiar with running in Enterprise Manager, and we've embedded that into both Autonomous Database serverless and dedicated. So it's available in both, and we're bringing that to DBaaS as well. So over time you'll see the standard VM bare metal database service have this available as well. Real-time monitoring of SQL statements is there, and of course all this stuff works with PDBs and make sure you can do isolation for like a serverless instance, if you want to call it that, as well. On the analytics side, there's a lot of work that has happened over the years to do anomaly detection, making sure that if a certain access pattern happens, right? Somebody logs in from the Ukraine. That's a common used example. At Oracle at least, then that shouldn't happen if the person is in HQ at Redwood Shores. Yeah, so something like a login that happens from a weird location at a weird time of day, then that triggers an anomaly and we can create an alert on that. Or if certain things happen in a region, let's say one virtual network inside OCI is running a bunch of VMs and they all have a certain pattern popping up at the same time, that doesn't make sense, then we can alert you saying, hey, that in that subnet in that region something goes wrong. But also the forecasting piece, so that one is doing analytics and being able to forecast, for instance, with Exadata. Are you running out of space in the next year? Do you have to start looking at procuring more compute nodes or more storage servers for Exadata, something like that. So analytics helps you with that because we collect the data and we can then do the work on top of that. Native integration, I talked about this a lot. It's very important for us to make sure that the experience you get when you do management in Oracle Cloud, that's completely integrated with all the other services, right? The logging, the alerting, the user management, identity management, One of the things that's not in these slides, by the way, and before I forget, we yesterday also announced OS management as a service. Right, so we started with a first version of this, which is in limited availability, manages the Linux OS, Autonomous Linux, Oracle Linux, CentOS and RHEL. We're adding Ubuntu support, but we're also going to add Windows support over in the not too distant future. So you'll have a standard OS management infrastructure in Oracle Cloud as well. So OS management, database management, all the different services will have their management consoles integrated as well. OMC integration, so the nice thing is there's an EM collector, so if you run EM on premises, then OMC can connect directly to that instance and suck the data out of it. You don't have to do anything special to set that up. The cloud agent knows exactly how to talk to it, get all the target data, and populate OMC right away. And of course, all the work around XSCS and Exadata. And then this has been a very popular plugin, if you want to call it that, managing XSCS systems and Exadata systems using Oracle Management Cloud and the components there. So this is the third and last demo, and so Rakesh is going to show some of the log analytics stuff that we have there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wim. So I'm going to show two things. First thing, what I'm going to show is integration between Enterprise Manager and OMC. Wim just talked about it. It's very simple to actually get your data from Enterprise Manager into OMC. Secondly, what I'm going to show you is a lot of the machine learning capabilities that we've been working on, specifically in log analytics, and how you can use that to automate and accelerate when you're troubleshooting problems. So let's start here. What you see on your screen is Enterprise Manager homepage for eBusiness Suite instance. So just focus on this thing here. It shows that this particular instance has 10 targets that are up, one of the target that is actually down. So once you deploy the data collector that can actually pull the information out of Enterprise Manager and then synchronize it with OMC, all the targets, all the groups, all the systems, all the properties that you have defined for a specific target or all your targets in Enterprise Manager are now available in OMC. And OMC can start taking advantage of those things in terms of using those properties to identify where your log files are, for example, and start ingesting those log files. So what I'm going to do now is switch over to OMC. And so once the target information has been synchronized between Enterprise Manager and OMC, let's go back and look at an eBusiness Suite fleet view in OMC. So on the left-hand side widget, you see there are 11 targets, the same 10 that were up and the one that was down. So that information has already come in here. Now, once the logs start flowing into Oracle Management Cloud, that's when you can start doing very interesting things. So let's move over to the right side here. And this widget, you actually see data that was analyzed and presented from logs. So as the logs get ingested in, whether it's for eBusiness Suite, database, middleware, the host, they're automatically categorized. So for each one of those error messages that typically exist in this wide variety of log files, they're automatically categorized and categorized into something simple and meaningful that most users understand. So there will be typically things like memory failures, storage failures, connection failures. So that categorization happens automatically. In this particular case, what we're seeing is that the logs are indicating that a lot of requests in eBusiness Suite were actually failing. So we're going to go and try and troubleshoot that problem. So I'm going to click on the failed request in that word cloud. And in this view, you're actually seeing a summary of all the logs that have been analyzed. So right at the top here, you're seeing a trend of all the log events that have come in for that eBusiness Suite instance. Just plain looking at this trend chart, I don't see anything particularly awkward. There's no spikes, there's no sudden drop-offs. So the trend seems to be more or less okay. So then my next option is to maybe go and look at each and every log event that is shown at the bottom. But if you notice, and this is a small sample time, but if you notice on the right-hand side here, there's about 1,100 log events. So if you want to analyze each one of them, sure, go ahead and spend the time. But that's where capabilities like machine learning come in really handy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of our machine learning capabilities and try to identify patterns in these 1100 log events. So I'm going to go ahead and say, cluster these log events. So as soon as you cluster the log events, it's telling me there are 15 clusters, which means there's only 15 unique shapes or types of log events that are actually present in those 1100 individual log events. 15 is a lot easier for me to analyze than actually having to go through all 1100 of them. We've also done some semantic analysis to identify that there are two potential issues, right? So this is basically looking at all the log files and seeing what are really bad things happening in your log files. We've done some sort of anomaly detection to see, are there any outliers? These are log events that are occurring just once. 10 log events have occurred just once in the given time frame out of those 1100. Those could be interesting. And last but not least, on the right-hand side here, you also notice there are 10 trends. So individual cluster patterns have their own trends that can be analyzed. But I'm trying to be lazy, and I'm going to see, can I reduce the number even less than 15? Can I analyze a very small number? And that's where we provide this capability called cluster compare. So invariably, when a problem is handed to an IT person, you typically are told, hey, something has gone wrong recently, let's say in the last 60 minutes. But the first reaction you have is, well, it was just working fine an hour ago. So you really want to know what is the difference between when things were working and when things actually broke. And doing like a giant diff for log files is not an easy thing, right? So that's where you can use cluster compare, which is actually going to compare the cluster patterns between those two time frames. So I'm going to go click here on cluster compare. You run the same query for the current time frame and the same query for a previous time frame, and you can actually say, go ahead and compare those results. So when I do that, what the system is now telling me, there are 13 clusters shown up right here that are common to both time frames. There are 2 clusters that have occurred only in the current time frame where the problem is occurring. And there is 1 cluster that was in the baseline when everything was behaving okay. Aha, now I have something very small to work with. So I want to go and analyze these 2 clusters and see, am I seeing anything unusual in those 2 clusters? So if I click on that and I kind of scroll down visually here, somewhere in the middle of the screen, I notice that there's a problem that some staging directory is missing, right? So somebody was trying to provide some eBusiness Suite patches, but some staging directory was missing, and hence, the patches were failing and the requests were failing. So bottom line, what I was quickly able to show you are 2 things. One, integration between Enterprise Manager and OMC so that all the target system groups that you've defined are automatically ingested and available in OMC, and you can build on that. And secondly, powerful pattern detection and machine learning capabilities that make the overall troubleshooting a lot more effective and much more productive. Thank you.
Thanks, Rakesh. So that's pretty cool stuff, huh? So one of the things that we've put a lot of investment in is creating these log parsers. So every application has a different log format, and just ingesting logs into a big data system doesn't make it easy to do stuff with it. You need to know which application is what. You need to be able to annotate things so that a certain error is an important error, like Aura 600 is more important than something simple. And so by being able to do all these, doing log parsing on the fly where we can annotate the log messages that we ingest, it allows us to do more of this stuff and be more intelligent about it. But it also gives our customers an easier way to figure out what's going on in a system because it's annotated that way. So, lastly, we have, obviously a lot of customers and a lot of partners, and we have, we always have finalists and winners every year in our Excellence Awards, and so certainly want to recognize everyone here on the screen and everyone else, of course, as well that uses the products and the services. So this was a little bit of an overview. We're at the end of the presentation, but I hope you kind of get an idea of where we're going with EM, pretty cool roadmap, and also where we're going with Oracle Management Cloud and integrating that into native cloud services. So thanks for coming and have a great open world.